Break's done. Hello, children. So have you ever watched a drama or an anime where the show is set in a certain period, and then you think to yourself, shit, when is that in English time? Well, that's what I'm here to teach you today. I don't really have much more to add, so like and subscribe. Before we start, here's a disclaimer. Everything I'll be teaching you is dumbed down so that even I could understand. Please do not use me as a source for your high school presentation. But if you do, please give me a shout out. In the beginning, there was nothing. Maybe. And then maybe a God said, let there be light. Maybe. I'm not agnostic, I'm just avoiding controversy. Several years later, this is what the East looks like. We first begin with the Paleolithic period, where nothing really happened. Just like everywhere else in the world, what we know about this period is that cavemen lived in caves and showered with rocks. The next period is the Jomon Jirai, where this guy was invented. Already off to a good start. Other important things in this period are magatamas, which are like important ceremonial objects, and the cultivation of azuki beans, which are delicious under specific circumstances. Also take note that this era is around 10,000 years old. Isn't that crazy? Next is the Yayoi period, which at first doesn't seem that different from the Jomon period. The transition between the two is pretty vague, but people generally differentiate the two with the agricultural revolution and the arrival of the Yayoi people as the main distinction. Anyways, this era is best known for the organization of different clans, the most famous among them being Himiko of the Yamatai, a coalition of more than 30 states. Next up, the Kofun period, where Japan unified for the first time under the Yamato. So the first 2 centuries of this era are shrouded in mysteries, because up until this point, we still haven't made a writing system yet, and the only record keeper at the time was dying, so this part's pretty much under speculation. What we really know about this era are these burial mounds that every elementary schooler has learned about, called Kofuns, hence the era name. Next is the Asuka period, where things get serious. Like for example, money, that's pretty cool. A calendar system, Buddhism, a hot new religion, was introduced and begrudgingly accepted, and the Taika reforms, which are improvements to the government in accordance to Confucian philosophy. That's not all though, there are like hundreds of other stuff, which goes to show how important this era is. And then the Nara period happened, which was pretty short-lived. Literature was booming, religion was booming, politics was complicated, and eventually evolved into the Heian period, which is special because of a few reasons. First off, the city of Heian, aka Kyoto, was technically the capital of Japan all the way till 1868. Second, this period marks the rise of the military, which still affects us today actually. And third off, Japanese culture exploded and Chinese influences declined. Anyways, politics is complicated, I'm not touching all of that this episode. Up next, the Kamakura period. Hey, that's where my family's from. This period is essentially when the new military government took control of power over the emperor and created this weird class system where everything is decentralized. Despite this, when the Mongols invaded, the country organized to kick them out. Twice. A libertarian's dream. Of course, this didn't last long though. The emperor got pissed, took over. The shogun got even more pissed, took over, and started the Muromachi Jirai. Unfortunately, since all the daimyos really didn't care for the shogun, and then a succession crisis took over, the power of the shogun basically died out. This led to a new type of period called the Sengoku Jirai, where everything fucking sucked for everyone. Imagine being a peasant in a civil war where a great portion of the land are borders. Now this isn't the first civil war in Japan, but it's definitely the coolest one. There are so many famous commanders like Takeda Shingen, Date Masamune, Oda Nobunaga, Tokugawa Ieyasu, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Uesugi Kagekazu, and there's like hundreds of others. It was basically a free-for-all. Anyways, the civil war led to the Azuchi Momoyama Jirai, where Oda Nobunaga sees Kyoto. It's called the Azuchi Momoyama after the names of the winners' headquarters, Nobunaga and Azuchi, and Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Momoyama. Tragically, Oda Nobunaga committed ritual suicide after he was betrayed by Akechi Mitsuhide at Honnoji Temple. Very famous event, there's tons of dramas and documentaries about this event alone. But then his bro, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, avenged him and finished conquering Japan. This same guy who invaded Korea, by the way. You know, the one where General Yi was MVP? Well, that was embarrassing. I hope my dynasty rules on forever though. Now comes the Edo period, where after a civil war between Tokugawa Ieyasu and Ishida Mitsunari, Tokugawa took over as the new shogun in Edo. Now, this period was really strict, even for 17th century standards. Death penalty for minor offenses, a ban on Christianity, and most famously, sakoku, aka isolationism. This all sounds like shit, but population was increasing, literacy became number one in the world, and infrastructure was increasing, among others. I know there's a lesson here somewhere, I just don't want to connect the dots. Anyways, in 1853, the black boats arrived in Japan. Matthew Perry forced Japan to open up to the Western powers. Successfully, might I add. A few years later, the Boshin War happened and the emperor was strong again. First time since the start and the end of the Kamakura period. Side note, in 1868, the new government implemented the Issei Ichigen system, an improvement to the era system. Up until this point, there were multiple eras within each period's names, each spanning around 10 years or so. The new government basically revamped this whole system, made it so that they were the same thing. I'll get into that in a minute, but as for now, the Meiji period saw rapid modernization, defeating China and Russia in the war. The Taisho period saw a bunch of small events setting up for something big. The Showa period is so long and important, it's split up into two segments, before the war ended and after the war ended. The first segment, wow, shit, well that just happened. And the second segment, where Japan became an economic powerhouse. The Heisei period was kinda shit. The economic bubble popped and recovery was slow. Well, hey, at least our culture spread all over the world. But if I were to describe it with one word, it would be mid. And finally, Reiwa. As of this video upload, we are here. This era isn't so good either, but I'm optimistic. Anyways, back to these naming conventions. All the era names derive from old Chinese scripts, and the emperors are honored as those chosen names. Whoops. But what's special about Reiwa is that this era name derives from a Japanese source. Yeah. Anyways, that's all the period / era names. Here's the timeline. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, etc. And I'll see you guys next week, hopefully before 12. She'll come, she'll go, she'll lay belief on you. Skin sweet with musky oil, the lady from another grinning soul. Cologne she'll wear, silver and America. She'll drive a beetle car and beat you down at Cool Canastra.